Welcome to the Deep Dive. You know we like to get into the nitty-gritty, and today we're diving into a topic you've definitely heard of, but maybe not fully understood.
That's right. Today's all about the greenhouse effect.
We're going to be using this report. It's called The Greenhouse Effect, a critical phenomenon shaping Earth's climate.
Yeah.
That's going to guide our conversation today. The goal is to, well, I think for me, it's like cut through the noise, understand this powerful force that is literally shaping our planet.
Yeah.
And then, the big question,
What
can we do about it?
Definitely a topic that can feel overwhelming, but, hopefully we can help with that.
Right.
We'll focus on, what are the crucial insights and explore some really fascinating details that you might not know about the greenhouse effect.
Yeah. And, it's not about getting bogged down, right?
Right.
It's not about jargon. It's not about feeling helpless. It's about understanding.
Exactly.
So let's get back to basics. What is the greenhouse effect?
So, at its most basic, the greenhouse effect is a natural process, and it's essential for life as we know it.
Okay.
Think of it like a giant, planetary blanket,
Uh?
keeping Earth warm enough for us to thrive. Without it, our planet, it would be a very different story.
A very cold story.
Yeah, a very cold story, very inhospitable.
I like our blanket.
Yeah.
So we've got this blanket. It's keeping us warm.
Mm.
How does it actually work?
Right, so imagine sunlight reaching the Earth's surface.
Okay.
Some of that energy is absorbed, right, which warms the planet. But some is reflected back into space as infrared radiation.
Okay.
Or, heat. Greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, they trap some of this outgoing heat,
Okay.
preventing it from escaping completely and keeping the planet at a livable temperature.
I was going to say, so it's like a car, right?
Yes, exactly.
Heating up and the sun windows are rolled up.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
The sunlight gets in, but the heat can't escape.
That's it. And this natural process, it's what maintains, Earth's average temperature at a relatively comfortable, for us at least, 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit.
All right, so we need this, but then we have this term enhanced greenhouse effect, which I think is where the human impact comes into play.
Exactly, yeah.
What's the distinction there?
So the enhanced greenhouse effect, that refers to the additional warming caused by human activities.
Okay.
Primarily since the Industrial Revolution, we've been releasing, massive amounts of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide, methane,
Right.
All sorts of things. Essentially, we're thickening that planetary blanket and we're trapping even more heat.
Okay, and the report highlights this dramatic rise in carbon dioxide levels specifically. What kind of numbers are we talking about here?
So before the Industrial Revolution, CO2 levels were around 280 parts per million.
Okay.
Today, they've surpassed 415 parts per million. It's a significant increase. And, it's directly linked to our activities.
Okay, so that's a stark difference. What does that actually mean for our planet? I mean, what are the consequences of all this extra heat being trapped?
Well, it's not just about things getting a bit warmer, right?
Right.
The consequences go far beyond just a temperature increase.
Okay.
We're seeing disrupted weather patterns, more extreme events like hurricanes, floods, droughts, all fueled by this increased energy in the atmosphere.
What about the impact on coastal regions? I mean, we're hearing a lot about rising sea levels.
Absolutely. That's a critical consequence. As global temperatures rise, glaciers and ice sheets melt at an accelerated rate.
Right.
Adding more water to the oceans, warmer water also expands, which further contributes to sea level rise. This threatens, coastal communities and ecosystems worldwide.
It's almost like this domino effect, right?
It is.
Where one impact triggers another. Are there other major consequences that we should be aware of?
One that's often overlooked but potentially devastating is ocean acidification.
Okay.
As the ocean absorbs more and more CO2 from the atmosphere, the water becomes more acidic.
Okay.
And this has a dire impact on marine life, especially creatures with shells or skeletons, like coral reefs, shellfish.
Okay.
And these organisms are crucial to, the entire ocean ecosystem. And their decline could disrupt, food chains and marine biodiversity.
That's a sobering thought. I think it's easy to forget about that interconnection of everything.
Yeah.
But we've been talking in kind of broad strokes. Can you give us some specific real-world examples of where the greenhouse effect is already causing problems?
Absolutely. One of the most striking examples is the bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef.
Right.
Warmer ocean temperatures are causing this widespread coral bleaching,
Okay.
which is essentially a sign of severe stress. If the temperatures remain high, the coral can die, and that has a domino effect, again, on the entire reef ecosystem.
It's really heartbreaking. It makes it very real.
It does.
What about other examples, maybe ones that hit closer to home for our listeners?
Yeah, so consider coastal communities, in low-lying areas. As sea levels rise, these communities face, increased vulnerability to flooding, to erosion,
Right.
potentially leading to mass migrations, displacement. These are real human consequences that are already unfolding.
And I imagine there are some significant economic consequences as well.
Absolutely. Extreme weather events, fueled by the enhanced greenhouse effect, they cause billions of dollars in damage to agriculture, infrastructure, property,
Right.
the cost of adapting to a changing climate,
Yeah.
building seawalls, relocating communities, developing drought-resistant crops. Those costs are enormous.
Okay, so we've painted a pretty bleak picture so far.
Yeah.
But there has to be some hope, right? I mean, what can we do about this? Surely there are solutions we can explore.
It can definitely feel daunting, but yeah, it can feel daunting for sure. But it's crucial to be realistic about the hurdles we face.
Yeah.
But the good news is it's not all doom and gloom.
Okay.
We actually have the knowledge and the tools to address this.
Okay.
It requires a multi-pronged approach, a collective effort, but solutions do exist.
Okay, I'm ready for solutions. Let's hear it.
Okay.
What needs to happen?
Well, I think, a major shift is needed in how we generate and consume energy.
Okay.
We need to transition away from fossil fuels, the primary culprit, right?
Yeah.
Behind rising CO2 levels, and embrace renewable energy sources, solar, wind, hydropower.
Sure.
These are all viable alternatives that can drastically reduce our carbon footprint.
That makes sense. I mean, I imagine that kind of energy transition requires a pretty massive, overhaul of our infrastructure.
It does, and that's one of the challenges. Investing in new infrastructure and technology for renewable energy is essential, and alongside that, we need to improve energy efficiency across the board. In our homes, transportation systems, industries, small changes can make a big difference when implemented on a large scale.
What about capturing the carbon that's already in the atmosphere?
Right.
Can we actually pull CO2 back out of the air?
So that's where carbon capture and storage comes in, or CCS. These technologies capture CO2 emissions, from power plants, industrial facilities, preventing them from entering the atmosphere in the first place.
Okay.
It's a relatively new field, but there's growing potential for CCS to play a significant role in mitigating climate change.
Okay, so we need technological innovations, like CCS, alongside a shift towards renewables.
Yep.
It sounds like governments and policy also have a big part to play in this transition.
Absolutely. International agreements like the Paris Agreement
Right.
set targets for reducing emissions and provide a framework for global cooperation. And then you have policies like carbon pricing, can create economic incentives for businesses to adopt cleaner practices and transition away from fossil fuels. So these top-down approaches are crucial for setting the stage for change.
So that's all very encouraging, but
Yeah.
I mean, it can feel like a lot of big picture stuff
Yeah.
that's kind of out of our control as individuals.
Right.
What about us regular folks? What can we do in our everyday lives to make a difference?
Individual actions might seem small in isolation, but collectively they have a huge impact.
Okay.
One of the most impactful things you can do is reduce your energy consumption.
Okay.
This could mean switching to energy-efficient appliances, using public transportation, cycling instead of driving, or even, just turning off lights when you leave a room.
Right. And those things actually, I mean, they can save you money too on your energy bill. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a win-win.
So it's good for the planet, good for your pocketbook. What about just being more mindful of the products we buy and the companies we support?
That's another really important step. Supporting sustainable practices and products makes a difference.
Okay.
Look for companies that prioritize environmental responsibility, choose locally sourced goods whenever possible, and consider reducing your overall consumption.
Yeah.
These conscious choices, they send a message to the market.
Right.
And they can drive change on a larger scale.
So it's about voting with our wallets.
Yeah.
And supporting the businesses that align with our values.
Exactly.
What about spreading awareness? Can that actually make a difference?
Absolutely. Never underestimate the power of conversation and raising awareness. Talk to your friends, your family about the greenhouse effect.
Hmm.
Share what you've learned from this deep dive. Encourage them to make changes, too.
Yeah.
It's about sparking those conversations
Right.
and inspiring collective action. It can feel overwhelming, but if we all do our part, we can create a ripple effect
Yeah.
that leads to real, tangible change.
And that's a good point, too, right? It's
Yeah.
like, it's easy to get discouraged when you feel like, oh, I can't do everything perfectly.
Right.
It's about continuous improvement
Right. It is.
and recognizing that even small actions matter.
Absolutely.
But we've also talked about some pretty big challenges, right? I mean, political roadblocks, economic interests tied to fossil fuels, the need for like rapid technological advancements. I mean, how do we stay hopeful in the face of all of that?
Well, it's important to acknowledge the challenges, but it's equally important to recognize the incredible progress that's already happening. Public awareness is growing, and people are demanding change from their leaders, from businesses.
Yeah.
Renewable energy technologies are becoming more affordable, more efficient.
Right.
And we're seeing a surge in innovation in areas like, carbon capture, sustainable agriculture. So there's actually reason to be optimistic. There's definitely reason to be hopeful. We're seeing positive change on multiple fronts, and the momentum is building. What's fascinating is that addressing the greenhouse effect isn't just about preventing disaster.
Right.
It's about creating a better, more sustainable future.
You're right. It's about envisioning a world where clean energy is abundant, cities are designed for resilience, and nature thrives alongside human progress.
Exactly. It's an opportunity to rethink our relationship with the planet and create a more sustainable and equitable future for everyone.
This has been a truly insightful deep dive. I feel like I have gained a much deeper understanding of the greenhouse effect, its impacts, and most importantly, what we can do about it, both individually and collectively.
I agree. It's a complex issue, but one we can't afford to ignore. The choices we make today will determine the kind of future we create for ourselves and for generations to come.
So, to wrap things up, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to remember from this deep dive?
It really is. The key takeaway, I think it's this. The greenhouse effect, it's powerful, yeah, but we've got the knowledge, the tools, and the will to address it. It's a challenge, we can't deny that, but it's also a huge opportunity to innovate, to build a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future.
It is for all of us. That's a powerful message to end on.
It is.
One of hope and empowerment. And before we go, do you have a final thought-provoking question for our listeners?
I do.
Something for them to kind of ponder.
Yeah, just to think about as they continue on this journey with us.
Okay.
Imagine a world where clean energy is abundant, cities are designed for resilience, and nature thrives alongside human progress. What role will you play in making that vision a reality?
That is a powerful question to end on. It really challenges us to think about our impact
It does.
and the future that we want to create.
Absolutely.
Well, this deep dive has been truly eye-opening. I feel like we've covered so much ground today. From the science behind the greenhouse effect to its real-world consequences and, again, to those solutions and actions that give us hope for a more sustainable future.
Yeah, and I think that report, The Greenhouse Effect, a critical phenomenon shaping Earth's climate, it really provided a solid foundation for this exploration.
It did. And to our listeners, we hope that this deep dive has equipped you, with a deeper understanding of this issue. It is complex, but it's not insurmountable.
It's not. We've seen that today. Collective action, innovation, and just a shift in mindset can make a real difference. Let's not be overwhelmed by the scale of the challenge, but rather, be inspired by the possibilities.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the issues that matter.